am back. You are comfortably zoned in the zone with Edge Studios' Pauly B. How you doing, Pauly?
Very well. How are you doing, Zig?
Your back seems to be much better. You've had 2 or 3 weeks of really being hurting.
Yeah, I was hurting a lot, and so definitely better now. Thank you. No, it's just all the other aches and pains of it's growing pains.
Oh, yes. We're not getting older. We're getting better.
Are we getting better?
Well, we're getting ripe.
We're definitely getting ripe. I'm on the ground. Pick me up and eat me now, folks.
Well, it seems like I'm the oldest guy in the room, and so anytime you complain about aches and pains, remember who you're talking to.
I'll remember. I'll mind my P's and Q's. I'm really excited about today's show. You got a lot of things going on with today's show.
I am too. We have Nancy Finley later on in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Finley is Charlie Finley's niece, and Carl Finley, who really ran the A's for Charlie in those days, his daughter.
Right. So Charlie O. Charlie O was the crazy guy that came up with all this marketing stuff, and her dad was the grounded one in the two.
Her dad, absolutely, and her dad really ran the A's.
Really, he was the one that kind of kept that front office moving forward. So.
Right. Nancy wrote a wonderful book back a few years ago, and she's been my guest on many podcasts, and I've gotten to know her and her husband Morgan King, and they co-wrote the book. And
it's Finley Ball.
Finley Ball.
Right?
Yeah.
Look forward to talking about Finley Ball.
We're going to talk about Finley Ball. But first, Pauly,
okay,
I'd like to introduce a woman who is just a classy woman.
we like classy women.
That's the best way I could explain it. She is a member of a group that I belong to about our neighborhood, the neighborhood we grew up in Jackson Heights.
Okay.
And I'd like to introduce Joanne Shomberg Heit.
Hey, Joanne. Welcome aboard Zig In The Zone. How's it going, dear?
It's going really well. And
Good.
Thank you for that very nice introduction, I must say. Classy lady. I like that. I'm going to make a big banner.
You are. And we've never met, but we've talked a number of times on the group session. You go down the track or around the track in an admirable way.
Thank you.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about yourself that I don't know. Did you move to Jackson Heights as a kid, as a real youngster?
Actually, I went from the hospital to the crib, and we lived on 32nd Avenue between 89th and 88th Street. And then when my mother became pregnant with my brother, we needed a 2-bedroom apartment, so we were on Northern Boulevard and 90th Street.
Okay.
So my life was in Jackson Heights, and
let's talk about Northridge to start with. It's a co-op, 5 square blocks. How many buildings were there?
1, 2, 3. I'm going to say there were 4 buildings, and on the other side there were another 4, so that's 8.
Okay. Now, all this right in the middle is a schoolyard, a park. And the school was PS 148. Did you attend that as well?
Yes, I did until they integrated the schools, and then I was at 127.
Okay. So that gives an idea of how many kids. Remember, this is post-war. Virtually all the families had 2 kids, 2, maybe 3 kids. And there were like 60 people in a building. Mm-hmm. Each building had its own personality.
It certainly did. That's a great way to describe it.
what was how would you describe your building, the building you grew up in?
It was rather quiet because most of the kids that I hung up with lived closer to 32nd Avenue, lived on the cross streets, not on Northern. I was directly on Northern Boulevard. Actually, we could see the Empire State Building from my kitchen window.
Wow.
It was really quite beautiful.
And
But
later on, you saw the towers. I remember. I'd go back to visit the Twin Towers.
Tower.
And going back when that one tower was gone, that was
heartbreaking.
Unbelievable.
My husband proposed to me in that tower.
Aww.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So when that tower went down, it was like, oh my, what do I show my daughter? What do I show my family?
Yeah.
And it's suffice to say, having the memory is enough.
It did bring together the spirit of New York. Can you describe that?
New Yorkers are given a real bad rap as being harsh and quick and not paying attention. But when the towers went down, there was a sense of unity and community that superseded anything I had ever seen before. I was already living on the island and working. Small world story about the day the towers went down. I left special ed for a while to teach computers, and one of my children whose diagnosis was autistic wanted to know why I kept coming into his classroom, and the reason was because parents were coming to pick up their children, and I didn't have any classes per se, so I was the one who was picking up all the kids. So my little Andrew says to me, Mrs. Heit, what are you doing in here? You're always in here. And I said to him, I said, you know what? You're going to have lunch with me today if you ask me one more silly question. But he was the only one, which goes to speak to the power of specialness of children with disabilities. He was the only one that recognized that it was highly unusual that I kept coming into his classroom.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember that very well. And then I remember not being able to look into the sky for the longest time because there was a hole in the sky.
Yeah. I was out in California, glued to the radio, glued to television. I mean, we didn't know what was going to happen from there. We thought this could be break out in a war.
Absolutely.
And it was frightening. It was frightening.
The neighborhood that I lived in, I don't mean to interrupt, and the neighborhood that I taught in both suffered significant losses when the towers went down. So it was a real time of mourning for both communities, my home community and my school community.
Wow. Well, let's skip ahead for a second to the way Elmhurst and Jackson Heights was affected by COVID, and how, again, another reason that New York showed off its goodness.
Well, have you been down since 34th, I think it's 34th Avenue, where it's like an open market? And they did that during COVID. They took the parking away on Saturday and Sunday, and it's this beautiful open market. And my parents had been gone for over 15 years at the time of 9/11, so I didn't have much contact with Northridge per se, other than the 90th Street Park group.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of Facebook? Totally. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm just curious. What makes you happy about it, and what makes you sad?
Well, what makes me happy is easy. When I retired, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with my life. And I discovered Facebook, and I reconnected with friends that I loved in my life. and they have now become really good friends. So that that reason alone, I'm a fan of Facebook. I'm not a fan of how fast information gets from one place to another, and it's not always accurate. But I think that that's something that they need to really work on, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the friends that I made from that moment in time, 2009 actually, it was when I retired. They
Wow.
are my close friends now, and I don't know how I lived without them for so long, to be honest with you. It was as if no time had passed.
Absolutely. And got to give Wayne Unger a lot of
Oh,
credit for putting the group together in the first place. It was, I speak to people who, like yourself, who are just enriched by the communication and going back to the past. When we were kids, our parents couldn't communicate, had no way of finding their childhood friends. And if God forbid, my father came from another um, came from Poland via Antwerp to get here, all his friends and relatives disappeared off the face of the earth.
I'm
He would
sorry.
have loved something like this. My mother too would, just to keep in touch with people. It's just wonderful from that. But like you say, there are a lot of down points to it, and that's basically the communication of knowledge. What's knowledge? What are you getting? Who are you listening to? And how much of it is bought by the Russians? By
Uh,
That's a little scary.
yeah, very scary. Very scary. And I agree with you about what Wayne did. Was Wayne and Lisa. Lisa she's gonna, if she sees this, she'll sing her, I
Okay,
think.
Lisa, I can't remember her now. I've never met her. I've never
Well,
met.
she was a friend of my brother's.
Oh, okay.
Wayne, on the other hand, he'd walk down the street, I'd cross the street and walk on the other side because I was afraid of him. He has
Really?
sub he has subsequently become, because he was cool. I was not really so cool. And he's now one of my closest, dearest friends. So go figure. So Facebook did that for me. It helped create a friendship that in any other place and time probably would never have existed. And I'm just so grateful for it because he is one of my closest friends.
What was like for you, like living in Jackson Heights and Northridge? Uh, what was it like on a daily basis?
Well, you never had to worry about anything early on. I mean, you go to the park. It wasn't until my kitchen window faced the park. It also faced New York. And when my mother wanted my brother or myself home, you could hear her for 5 states. But we knew that it was time to come home. Um, but we were never afraid. When they integrated the schools, it changed the whole dynamic of the neighborhood, really. I mean, nobody understood because nobody took the time to explain to us that this really is a better way of education. And as an educator, it took me many, many years to be able to say what I just said. I got an amazing education at 127. The first teacher I had, Mrs. Frazier, she's the reason I went into education. She was that wonderful. Then, of course, I had Mrs. DeViver, and she's one reason why you never go into education.
I agree with you, and I think that's where we met originally on Facebook. The discussion of Ms. DeViver.
What
What a horrible human being, and she was put with children. Um,
yeah.
she she went a long way in ruining the communication I had with my mother over
Oh,
time
darn.
to go to sleep. She
Wow.
insisted, did Mr. Viber, that we go to bed at 8:30 at night.
I remember that.
And
Oh,
it
wow.
made my parents and I put us at odds because I wasn't tired. And by the way, I was going to stay up all night listening to the radio, Long John Neville. Anyway, so
Hmm.
did you ever have Long John Neville in your life?
I actually know who you're talking about, but I don't have much of a memory of following him or listening to him. But I remember the name, and I remember he was on the radio, wasn't he?
He was indeed WOR, right
Yeah,
after Gene Shepard. Another.
yeah. I was not into sports as much as my brother was, so anything sports related, I would know from him. I was a girly girl. I was as straight as they come, and a rule follower, which has not really changed to this day, but I can get away with it now. I was then considered a geek, and I wear that banner proudly, you should know. But growing up and just being in this community where you had a million eyes on you, and they weren't all, your mother didn't have to be the one to reprimand you or to tell you you're doing something wrong or right. Anybody could
You
look at
had a
you.
building of parents.
Yeah.
If it was anything like mine, you behaved for the neighbors.
Well, absolutely, because if you didn't, well, in my house anyway, do you know that the entire neighborhood could see you kissing that boy by the dumpster? No, I didn't think about it when it happened.
But nevertheless, yeah.
So
So
I
you
never.
weren't as straight laced as you think. You were adventurous.
Well, that was junior high school. I already gave myself some years,
Uh,
but yes, in that respect, I didn't really break the rules outright. I bent them a lot.
okay, right. That's good. You mentioned 145, and we
Uh,
both attended 145. It was the best learning institution of my life. I thought it was absolutely a terrific school. We had Mr. Ryan, who was a dean, who was a
scared the
nutcase.
pants out of everybody, which
Right,
was
he was a
good.
nutcase, but we made up for it with some terrific teachers. Mr. Bart was a great teacher,
Hmm.
and I joked with you the other day when, in thinking you were going to come on, I asked you about Miss Friedman. Miss Friedman was a young teacher, and I think she was Mr. Friedman, the music teacher's daughter, if I'm not
Oh
mistaken.
my!
If I'm not mistaken, and I had a crush on her to beat the band, and she was just my homeroom teacher, and the kind of teacher who would sense when a child needed a pat on the back. What's
Those days are
wrong?
gone.
A look in the eye.
Yeah,
What's bothering you?
yeah.
And
That's
very few teachers are able to communicate with their children beyond the education part, the emotion part.
You're absolutely right, because if you touch a child, the parent is up in arms. I mean, I was fortunate in that I had the special needs children. So many, they needed that physical touch. We did a lot of sensory motor activities where they had to be modeled by holding them in front, holding them from behind, however it was. And I was able to do it because of my role in the school. But my friends who were teaching regular ed, they would look at me and they say, "You're going to get fired." And I was thinking, well, maybe it's a good thing my kids are nonverbal. But no, I was not really worried about getting fired. I was more worried about providing them opportunities to advocate for themselves.
What are they doing now? What are they doing now?
Well, one is engaged to get married.
Wow.
You bet. Another one almost made it to the pros in football. My job with this particular child, his teacher could not handle him at the end of the day, and he would act out, or he would not write his homework down, or he wouldn't do this, and I was called in to just walk him up and down the hall, because he had a lot of energy.
Energy, right? You got to burn it off some way, and
my building was so wonderful. They understood this, so I would walk him, and he would say, "I hate so and so," and I say, "You really don't, because she really is looking out for what's best for you." And to this day, he is a multimillionaire.
Really?
So, yeah. So a lot of my kids, they landed on their feet, and I had the lowest of the low, if you want to judge by IQ. So the fact that they are all living productive lives is pretty cool to know.
Right. EQ is much more important than IQ.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
And the happiest people have the highest EQ and maybe not the highest IQ. Because,
isn't that the truth?
Because you know what? If you know too much, it's a hindrance. I mean, if you see the world as it really is, it can be a disability.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why a high EQ is important.
Well, it gets you through a lot of situations that you never thought you'd see yourself in.
Yeah. When you were a kid in Northridge,
yeah,
looking into being a grown-up, looking at in your imagination, what were you surprised by when you became a grown-up? What really shocked you?
My dad was deaf. He was the first cochlear implant actually in New York State.
Really?
So what surprised me is how cruel people were to people that have disabilities. And the beauty of my dad was that he never let it define who he was. And I expected everyone else to be like that, and that just was not the case.
Okay.
So as an adult, that like blew me out of the water, and I just felt I had to do something about it. And I went to school to become a speech pathologist, and I decided that I needed a bigger stage. Sitting in a cubby in a booth was not going to do it for me. So I needed a classroom, and that's how I wound up as a special ed teacher.
Ah.
With the caveat that please do not place any hearing impaired children in my class. That will break me. Because that is my Achilles heel.
Yeah. What are you most proud of in your lifetime that you've achieved?
Wow. That I'm ruled by, that I'm this was the wording I saw the other day, that I'm an empathetic badass. I can feel what you're feeling. I can walk in your shoes without ever trying your shoes on. And I got that from both my parents. And I am proud of the fact that I can do that. That I don't have to know you to hurt for you. I don't have to know you to want to help you. As you read my posts online, very often that I don't feel like I want to pontificate, but I have former teachers out there. I eventually became an administrator. I have former teachers out there that sort of rely on me just for the right words, for the right moments.
Yeah.
And so I haven't really left education. And so I would say I'm most proud of the fact that I was able to spend my life preparing children to spend theirs in a way that would make them happy, where their handicaps did not define who they were.
Beautiful. Wow. I was telling Pauly about you before we went on the air, and I knew what to expect because of the way we've communicated. And Pauly, get to know Joanne a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I felt like I've gotten the crash course of getting to know you over the last 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so. And so
yeah, if only you could open up a little, Joanne.
Yeah, really. No, but it's funny that you guys share a lot of the same nomenclature, the stuff that, you know, growing up in that neighborhood, and not necessarily being side by side, but kind of going through all those nuances of back in the neighborhood, of knowing certain things like the radio, what certain days, even the teacher, 8:30 at night.
8:30 at night.
She was
a horrible person. She was just horrible.
But we have this commonality of Northridge, and I think that with the first reunion, which was 20 years ago now, I think 200 of us, some absurd large number of us kids,
wow,
who are in our 30s and 40s and 50s, descended upon the park. And those of us whose parents were still alive descended upon the park as well.
Wow.
It was the center of the universe, really, for those of us that grew up around the 90th Street Park. All action came from there, good and bad. But I loved my childhood. I have nothing that except for Diviva. I was very, very lucky. 145, I had wonderful teachers. And in Newtown, I had the best teachers that there possibly could be. And because of that, with a girlfriend, we put together our 40th and our 50th high school reunion.
Wow.
So now that we have an even bigger group of people that we care about and we love, and we're back in touch with each other again. And it's amazing how many lives are parallel. How many teachers came out of the group? How many lawyers came out of the group? How many doctors came out of the group? Where do you see that? And I don't have to know you to care about you and to love you, because you grew up and you have the same roots that I did.
Absolutely. We're bonded. That's the only way. And we don't have to like everybody, you know.
That is true.
And I found that some of the people that I meet today, they're the same as they were as kids. Absolutely. Good, bad, or indifferent. We don't really change. And I think after you get to be 5 years old, you're pretty well formed and you're not going to change. And we all moved here around the same age. We were about the same age when we moved here.
Sure.
So we were formed. And
it's
you
funny
mentioned Newtown.
That because I did come in touch after the first reunion with no names, with the bully of Jackson Heights in my life. And we had a couple of really nice conversations, and I'm thinking, okay, we're in our 40s now, we're in our 50s now, people change. A couple of conversations later, he starts in pontificating and just being nasty. And I used the word...
No, I know this isn't Wayne.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, I know Wayne, and that would not happen.
No, Wayne would tell me off privately, and I would listen, and then we would continue from there. But no, this was not Wayne. And I know I blocked this person because he was as nasty today as he was when I was a kid, and I no longer had to be bullied by him.
Right. And one of the niceties about Facebook, you can block somebody and get them out of your life. And
Yeah.
within weeks, you don't even really remember their name. And when when something comes up that's negative, you don't get to see it, and
Yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. What did you
We were
do for
very
fun as
lucky.
a kid? What was
But
what was just purely fun?
punch ball.
Huh.
I was very, very good, and I could get it over the big fence from the wading pool area where there was home plate.
Right.
So I was athletic. My brother doesn't remember it that way, but my friends do. And so it was punch ball. I was a runner. Um, so those are the things I liked. The monkey bars.
In
I
the
liked.
we had
I like.
sitting areas between the buildings. Describe the sitting areas and the mellowness of basically our parents and relatives that would come to visit, and it was like just a meeting place where you just get together and talk. That was what I like most.
Yeah.
The communication between the people.
And it didn't matter if you lived in the same building or not. Everybody was everybody's friend. And my mother used to hang out in the sitting area in the first section, that in the 80s, or that could be the third section. I don't remember. But that's where she hung out with the women that she was friendly with. So I knew she was there. And I was safe. And if she wasn't there, there were 70 other women or men that were. So it was safe. It always felt safe. I never felt threatened. And I can't say that my daughter had the same experience growing up. People didn't look out for each other the way we used to.
I'm dying to ask. I know you got a question too,
No,
but
no.
I'm going back. I'm going to go back a little bit because it's just eating at me. What is punch ball? Is punch ball? I'm going to guess it's something like what we used to do, which you had the rubber balls, and then kind of like baseball, but you used your arm.
Yes.
Your fist.
Exactly. You hit the ball and you run.
Boom.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just like baseball, except there's no pitcher, and it was a skill. You had to have the skill of throwing it over your head, and not everybody could do that.
Throw it over your head, like serving it, like
exactly.
tennis almost.
You threw it up in the air, and then you just took your hand and punched it across the fence. And the best feeling in the world was that when I got up to punch, all of a sudden everybody went back.
Because they're like, back further, go deep.
Yeah.
It's going to the wall.
She's gonna hit it over the fence. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And I remember that fence is a long way from home plate, and wow.
Yeah, as I said, it was great. I learned how to jump double Dutch rope once they integrated the schools, and that's a skill that I did not necessarily possess, but I tried. And just everything about I know I sound like very Pollyanna-ish, but everything about Northridge and growing up there was just wonderful.
What's something from the old neighborhood or the old days that we could rejuvenate? You know how Hollywood is always remaking great old movies because they only wrote them great back then, right? And so now we were talking about it yesterday on another show that I was on. They were talking about how they took out this miniature putt-putt golf course and they built a women's jail. And I thought, well, okay, if you're going to take away a childhood place to play, you might as well give them a place to be housed when they're older at this point, because you're stealing their childhood. Why not steal their adulthood? Yeah. And so what do you miss from the old days that you think we could leave to the next generation?
The monkey bars.
The monkey bars. We all remembered the monkey bars. I remember falling on the monkey bars and skinning my knees. But now you go to monkey bars, Have you seen the ground inside a playground? It's made out of
Yes.
foam.
Rubber, right?
You
For
might as
that-
well
for
put your
that
kid
reason.
in a big, huge, like cage to let him go play because,
Right.
or
I guess I'd
wrap
like
him
to-
up like a Q-tip or something. I don't know, but we've
Well,
become too sanitized of a nation. I remember falling off my bike and skinning my elbow and running home, and
and that was a badge of honor.
it was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you where I skinned my knee and fallen off a bike was learning to ride my bike where Southridge is now. Do you
Right.
remember where it was an open field, Aces
actually-
Field? And we watched the neighborhood really become a neighborhood when
Absolutely.
Southridge was built. We got diversity, a different group of kids, and that was cool. I thought of something. We're talking about educators and lousy ones, and you mentioned Newtown High School, and I wanted to tell you and Paul about my greatest educator at Newtown, anywhere. She taught me how to perform, how to memorize poems, and perform them in class.
Susan Edelman.
No, she was Miss Strocker. I don't know. She might have been before your time, but she had legs up to there. that was, but that wasn't the thing that stands out. The thing that stands out is the poems that she made us memorize. There were two of them. One was Invictus by William Ernest Henley.
Look how you remember.
I can't. Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul.
I love it.
And the next poem was, God, I'm forgetting that. It was, I'm blanking on it. Save me.
Oh my gosh! So no, that goes back poetry, huh? That's kind of wild.
But the poem was, whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement stared at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean favored, and imperially thin. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In short, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. Now, those two poems gave me an ideology to live through. Those two poems did it. Invictus and the other poem. I may not remember them, but I do remember the ideology.
You remember the way it made you feel, and that's really more important than remembering the poem itself.
Exactly, and the way I thought of life, because, and she gave me the skill of being able to memorize and stand up and talk, which helped me in my sales career. It helped me in my job with Topps baseball cards. Every summer, I would travel around the country or around the West Coast and sign minor league players to major league contracts for baseball cards. So I had to be able to talk.
Sure.
And that did it. And when I went into podcasting and comedy, I did comedy for a long time. And it just, the communication skills would not have been there if she didn't see the need to bring me out of.
She saw something in you and she highlighted.
That's the kind of educator that is totally opposite from Ms. DeViver. And there were other ones besides Miss DeViver who weren't
Spencer.
great. I
Miss
remember Miss
Spencer.
Silverstein. I,
Don't Silverstein.
I didn't get along with Duffy. I don't remember if you knew her.
How about Spencer? Miss Spencer.
No, but Bernie Rose had her.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, right.
I love Bernie. I really
Is
do.
Bernie great? Marty was my best friend
No,
growing up. And,
I did not know that.
I
know
would
he's
spend
struggling.
more time in his apartment than I did mine. Now, Bernie was his younger brother, and we were 7 or 8. He was 2 or 3 years younger, and I got to watch him learn the piano,
Oh, wow.
play his first notes, and watch him develop over the years.
I used to go when I was a snowbird on the other side of the state. I used to go watch him play all the time. And he touched those ivories and he made them dance. He was so incredible.
Yeah.
And talented. Yeah. He became a good friend, actually.
Oh, that's nice. See,
I know where you're going to go.
Who knows who? And it's wonderful. Bringing back the names, bringing back the memories, bringing back, as you say, the feelings of when we were young.
And they're all warm and fuzzy. And the people I've spoken to, whom I shared that I was doing this, first I got, of course, don't embarrass us. Then I got make us look good. And I said, how could I not? We grew up in the ideal time, in the ideal place, and we're still connected by this thread. And how lucky are we?
And it goes on, meeting people and refreshing from the old days. I got on Facebook, it says, people you know. And one guy, I don't know if you remember, Joel Zucker.
I know the name.
Joel Zucker sat behind me the day that Kennedy was shot and assassinated.
I have chills.
And I remember when they announced it, looking back, just turning around because I knew him, and the horror on both of our faces.
Yeah, you were in 145 at that time.
I was at Newtown.
You were at Newtown?
No, I was in Newtown, yes.
Okay.
It was 62 or 63.
63. I was in Spencer's class, I believe.
Yeah.
First time I ever saw emotion across the woman's face.
All of us, we were absolutely shocked.
Shell-shocked, absolutely.
Wow. What do you pass on to your kids that you got from your parents specifically?
Wow.
Good question.
Always be kind, because everybody has a battle that you don't know about. So always be kind. And my daughter makes me very proud every day of the year. She's a bilingual social worker, and she's focusing on children who are thinking about taking their lives by suicide.
Oh, wow.
She lost a friend several years ago, a good friend, and that's what made her want to do this. I, of course, thought she should be a teacher, which is another reason why she's a social worker, but that's a subject for another podcast. But she loves what she does. When she speaks Spanish, it sounds like music to me, because she's not native, but she sounds like she is. She's my ringer when we used to go into the city and we'd travel on the train. And I say, what are they saying? What are they saying? And I was just so proud of her that she knew. And so that's what she took her love of Spanish, her ability to teach and relate to people, and she became a social worker. And she's doing good work, and she's making a difference in the lives of children. And to me, nothing is more important to
And
raise a country of.
She's living in not in Mount Kisco, because that was where my uncle grew up, but moved to Holyoke.
From Salem, Massachusetts.
From the most beautiful place in the world, Holyoke.
It is lovely. It's quiet, and I am not a winter fan, so it just looks sad to me. I can't wait to get back to the warmth of Florida.
Right.
And she, of course, will never move to Florida because old people live there. So
well,
I've been
wait until she may feel differently. Tack on a few years.
Everything goes round, comes round. I just hope I'm here to see it.
Now, I live in California, and I know the rule. It's written somewhere in the Torah that old Jews have to retire in Florida.
Oh, then I followed another rule. I didn't even know it. We used to come down to St. Pete when I'd write my IEPs for the year with a pina colada in one hand and looking out at the Gulf of Mexico. And I decided that this is where I wanted to retire. So I'm not exactly in St. Pete. I'm in a small town outside of Tampa, but I'm close enough to the Gulf that I can get into the car and be there in 10 minutes.
Beautiful.
So life's good. I've been very, very lucky. And
just saying that is a great place to conclude the show, because those words makes me feel exactly the same as I felt when I thought you might come on the show. I knew what we were going to get. Pauly, this has been tremendous with Joanne. And would you promise to come back someday?
I would love to. This has been some trip for me.
Okay.
And Joanne, who do you want to shout out? I know you want to say hi to family or whatever, and so shout out whatever you got going with your family and whatever you got coming up.
I'd like to shout out to my girlfriends who are still my girlfriends. That would be Adele, Marilyn, Mimi, and Helene. And we still go away together, and we talk at least once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month. And we're there for each other. We don't have to see each other every day, but if one of us picked up the phone and said, "I need you," we couldn't get there fast enough.
This is the spirit of Northridge. Everybody looking after each other. Absolutely socialism when you think about it, because it didn't matter how much money your parents made. We didn't know about it as kids. We all lived the same way. And we were blessed. And I'm blessed having you as a guest.
Oh,
thank you again.
It's been a blessing to be here and to share my memories.
I loved it.
Thanks, Joanne, for hanging out with us. We really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see you next time, all right?
Thank you for inviting me. It was truly a mitzvah. Ralph, you can explain what a mitzvah is.
He's been
I've been teaching him Yiddish.
We've been kibitzing, right?
He thinks I'm a schmuck.
Kibitz. There you go.
Right.
You've both been great. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Appreciate you.
Love you, Joanne. Be well.
Love you too, Ralph. Take good care.
All right.
Thank you.
So that was Joanne Shomberg Heit right there. And man, that was fun catching up, right? Always a blast. Always a blast. Did that take you back to the old hood?
I got warm feelings. I have. It's nice. Thank you again.
So that remind you of being back in the neighborhood? Absolutely. Stomping that concrete.
Hitting a punch ball.
There we go.
Over the fence with this one. Get back.
You're the best female punch baller I've ever met. I never saw any woman hit a ball.
And now I need a runner. So.
Well, we all need a pinch runner at this time, darling. I'm telling you.
with a little help from our friends, somebody will
Thank
run
you
for you.
so much. I can't just thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bless you and your family. Thanks for coming along for the ride.
Back at you. Have
Thank
a good
you,
one.
guys. All right.
Be well.
All right. So we're back here live in the studio. You feeling
Wow.
good, bud?
That felt good.
Yeah.
That gives everybody an indication of how I grew up.
Right.
And the people around me made the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked the right person to talk to.
You always seem to. You seem to get the right people around you.
Nice part is I'm going to bring back people from Jackson Heights on a regular basis. So we'll have nice people in our world.
Okay.
We have another guest coming up.
We do, and I'm going to get to that point. Tell us a little bit about how your weekend was, buddy.
My weekend?
Yes, sir.
Which weekend was that?
The last one here, the one we just finished.
That.
Not the. You can tell us about how your next weekend went after this week.
If I'm a prognosticator. It was very strange because, as you know, that my roommates are selling the house that we lived in.
Right.
And they are not now at the point where they're showing the house.
And
And
they are showing it.
absolutely. And it's I've lived there for 8.5 years. And
It's home.
it's home. And it's very strange to me, the way things have turned out. Good, the bad, and the ugly. Life is full of changes. And this weekend was indicative of change. And got to go through it. And you got to worship the change because change is good for you,
Right.
whatever you do. And it doesn't seem like that while you're going through it, but it always works out that way. That you go from one set of circumstances to another, and you just try to improve your life as much as you can. And now we're going to talk to somebody who improved my life. Her name is Nancy Finley, and we've been friends for 4 or 5 years. She's been a podcast guest many times, and she is the daughter of Charlie Finley's cousin, who actually ran the A's. I mean, Charlie ran the A's too, but Carl Finley was the stabling force behind the team. And remember, this was a team that Charlie Finley built into. And there's a lot about Charlie Finley that people find distasteful, this, that, and the other thing. Charlie Finley put together the last baseball dynasty.
The swinging A's, right? The swinging A's.
Well, before the swinging A's.
Okay.
They were just the A's. And Charlie brought them out from Kansas City. And before long, they won 5 divisional championships in a row. And in between those years, there was 3 World Series victories in a row.
Right.
So, whatever you say about Charlie Finley, you got to remember what he did for baseball in terms of building a team.
Right.
He was also had many, many ideas to improve baseball, and I'm going to let Nancy talk about it when we get her on.
And as we're dialing,
that's
the sound of dialing phone.
When Nancy answers, the first thing I want her to see is your shirt.
Oh, is that what you want her to see? Because we were, hey, we're doing that thing, and we're waiting for Nancy, and we're doing that call, ringy dingy, 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingies. Don't worry. We'll just keep going.
Well, we'll keep going for a while, but
I'm just turning down so you guys don't have to hear the ring.
Okay.
So I know that
Till she gets here.
Till she gets here.
Talk to me about Edge Studios, where we are sitting right now, and where you're the producer of this show.
Right.
But you're the producer of Edge Studios.
Yeah, I do. We do multiple shows here. Some of the talent just comes in and does their thing. Other times they do not. I have to run things for them, like you and I produce this show. Basically, you're my boss. You're my boss every Tuesday from 11 to 1. And that's a great thing, because some people just want to come in and be able to create and do what they do. As I'm trying to go from your camera to my camera, and I can't walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right.
That's what I do. So
actually, you can.
Can I?
Yeah, oh, yeah. You're terrific around here.
I'm trying to get people to express themselves in a positive, creative environment. And when I look at your show, when I look at other shows that we feature here at Edge Studios, I'm really proud. It's an eclectic collection of people, and it's kind of like my life, very eclectic. There's not any one specific thing or another. And if you want to, feel free to reach out to Nancy as I'm ringing her. Let her know that we're calling her on the phone.
Let me call her.
A little talk to her a little bit about her book. Her book is Finley Ball.
Right.
And but going back to Edge Studios, it'll segue back to that. So we're always looking to help people create. If you're having a problem creating in your own space, or you need a space to do it, or if you're a seasoned pro and know how to do everything from A to Z and you just need a great place to do it, we're that place. If you're looking for a place where you can just come in and be the
Nancy,
talent, that's great.
Get to Facebook.
And we are hopefully there.
No, we're trying to connect with you on Facebook like we talked about.
So we'll see what's happening here in just a moment.
Okay, just get to Facebook, and all right, we're going to ring you again.
All right, so we'll try this again here. We'll try anything once. All right, so let's see if we can get Nancy this time around. And I will turn up the ringers.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you got to get on Facebook. Answer the phone, Nancy.
It should be okay. She should be getting us on her phone.
Okay.
Never a boring moment with technology, right?
Absolutely. That's what makes it exciting.
That's right. And so ask her to maybe possibly go on Messenger. Maybe that's the... Let me see if I can just thumbs up her and see if she can get it. But
okay.
Here, we'll see if that gets her. All right, so let's wing it, my man.
Let's wing it.
Let's wing it. So I know that Nancy is going to be joining us. Where's she from, actually? Because I know originally she was from Kansas City.
Right.
Moved to Oakland.
And now she's somewhere in Texas. I think it's in
She's
Austin.
in Texas. Okay, cool.
So we'll reach her.
Yeah, absolutely. Sooner or later, we'll get through.
Okay. Tell me about the good feeling you have where we are living a crackhead's dream.
I did rebuild a crackhead's dream. So I'm currently in a studio that I helped build out I think 8 or 9 years ago with an individual who will remain nameless. It's kind of like that past president. We won't even use his name because He's an energy vampire. He steals it from you. Even when you're not looking, he just takes it from you. But anyway, built out the studio about 8 years ago. Did a little stint here, helped him manage his business. He had a stroke, and he was ready to throw in the towel. And basically, there were a lot of my friends. There was myself, a lot of my friends that were doing shows here that were other stand-up comedians. There was musicians and DJs and all this. We had a really collective group of people, and he wanted to throw in the towel, close up the studios, and I didn't want to lose my show. I know other people didn't want to lose their show, so I volunteered. I volunteered to help him manage his show or manage his studio. That lasted for from the old place to the new place. We built out the new place. I stayed here for about a year, and then like most of the time with people, with this individual, he had a falling out. And basically, he was very two-faced. I called him on it to his face, and then he tried to get violent with me 2 seconds before my show started one Sunday.
Wow.
And I said, nope, not going to do it, and walked out, never darkened this doorstep again until during the pandemic, he let things go awry again and was going to close it down, and then vandalized his own studio so nobody could ever use it again. And so I came in and rebuilt that crackhead's dream. I made this a viable studio, not only where people could come and express themselves and create, but also we stepped it up a notch. We added cameras. We added things like this where we can actually control everything from our iPads. Everything's digital. We're doing the same stuff the old people used to do, and some of my competition's doing, which is an audio podcasting service. You can go to us on edstudiosonline.com, go to Studio 1A or 2B, and listen live to all the content that we serve up, including this show. But then also we have each one of these artists, like Zig here, have their own platforms. They have YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, you name it, they've got it. So we let them serve up their video content on their own site, and they have control of their own content. We're one of the only studios doing that. It looks like we're going to try.
Hey, Nancy. Morgan, can you get her on to Facebook Messenger?
I'll call it right now. It looks like... Okay, and I'm calling it, and it's from Paul Brumbaugh. And I'm calling you on Messenger right now. Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, this is Paul. How are you?
We are producing on the fly.
What did you see on your end on Messenger? Yeah, we're doing it on the fly, folks. So do you see my message to you earlier with the thumbs up? So go into your message request or your messenger. And I said you haven't allowed messenger access. Oh, so say yes. Where do I say that? Up on the top, it will. There you go. Now, so do me a favor. Why don't you messenger me? Why don't you try calling me directly on that one? From here? Yes. There's a little camera icon on the top. Okay. You see that, Morgan? Okay. You must see the camera icon. There's an X. There's a minus. There's a camera, then there's a phone, upper right-hand corner of the... Okay, I found something that says, not bookmark. Okay, no, that's not it. Okay, it says, do you see what the drop-down? Yes! Hey, guys, just so we can do this, not you guys, we're telling our live audience, hey, guys, we're going to take a short break so that we can do that thing we do. So we'll be right back after
Play
this.
some music for us.
We'll do something here.
guys. It's time to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
All right, Zig, we're back here in studio, live in studio. We've got Nancy, but we've got Nancy on audio joining us all the way from where? Somewhere in Texas, right, Nancy? Austin, Texas.
Texas, the most liberal part of Texas.
Yes, there's Texas and then there's Austin.
Are you happy with the liberal part, Nancy?
You know, I don't know if I encounter it. I'm really not sure.
Okay.
It's just, I know that it's very, let me see, very clean. I don't see or hear about a lot of crime.
Do you miss California?
I miss the baseball team.
Okay. We're going to miss the baseball team soon, too.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
I've gone through that. So
well, you're on the inside.
Yes.
Dave Carvel is your friend, and maybe you could give me some information that we don't know about the impending move. Is it going to go through?
Well, you know, he's new too. I mean, it's something I have lived through the rumors of moving so many times. I thought that, I mean, we practically had our bags packed. That's how close it's been.
Well, you go back to Kansas City and the rumors of them moving to Oakland. What was that about?
Well, I was real little then, and I remember hearing about Oakland, but that was a bluff. That was all Charlie's bluff. That was not serious until it was. I remember, my parents were divorced. I was living in Dallas with Mom when that happened. And I just remember Dad saying that they walked in to a meeting figuring they would leave with some kind of negotiated lease. And they leave knowing they have to find a place to move.
Because they had actually given the other sports team in Kansas City like $1 lease or something.
Yes, starting in '63, and that made us very angry. But I remember Charlie used to say, "Well, if they don't give me the same, I'm going to move," and he was bluffing.
It was a negotiation tactic.
Right, that's how Charlie bought the team. It was bluffing. He didn't really have the money. He offered for it, but that the agreement between Dad and Charlie was Dad would live wherever the team resided. So Dad would have to agree to live wherever they moved. But still, I know in Oakland, there were rumors about moving, and Denver was the one that seemed the most likely. And that didn't happen. But I just remember feeling like at that time, nothing had happened with the city. The city hadn't done anything to finish the front office because Dad said that they made us think it was just turnkey, just move in, everything's done. But still, we had to move somewhere, and Dad had a lot of good friends in Kansas City. He really, really didn't want to move the way they did. He would have liked a little more planning, but with this, Las Vegas, I know that Vegas made the Raiders a great offer, you know, buying out the whole stadium for 1 year at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they're making the A's the same kind of offer. But I heard that the Raiders wanted to move there, hoping that San Antonio opened up later.
Oh, wow.
So it's a stopgap, but still, I always heard Vegas was not a good sports town. I guess because of people going there and wanting to see shows or gamble and not necessarily see a game, because most people can do that where they live. Now, I've also heard that Vegas is a big Dodger town.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all.
I heard that. Someone said there are a lot of Dodger stores around there. Well, okay, if they're Dodgers, what about Diamondback? Isn't that the same distance or closer?
No question. No question. Nancy, when you first moved to Oakland,
Yes.
were you disappointed or happy, personally?
Oh, happy. I came from really a bad situation. My mom just stayed in a dark room in her gown all the time with the Bible. So it was getting bad. And she wouldn't allow me to communicate with Dad or any of Dad's relatives. So I was really happy when this woman found out where Dad worked. She asked me if I knew. And actually, CPS showed up at our hotel door and took me away. And then the next day, Dad was there with his attorney, and I flew to San Francisco. So it was a major change, and I was happy. I was just happy to be with Dad. When my parents divorced, I packed my bags and thought I could go with Dad. So, but the Coliseum was gray. I didn't see the colors that I was used to in Kansas City. But I wasn't going to complain. But I do remember the grass was beautiful. You're walking in there, you see the field. It's always a beautiful feeling, but everything else seems gray.
Nancy, would you tell us a little bit about the relationship that your dad, Carl, had with Charlie?
Yes. Well, I guess they were like brothers, because when I look at adult siblings, most of them don't seem as close as Dad and Charlie. Dad and Charlie talked every day on the phone. It was always early morning, sometimes when I was still asleep, then in the evening, and usually during the day. And when I was a little older in my teens, I remember hearing Dad use reverse psychology on Charlie, and I would think, doesn't Charlie understand what Dad's doing? I don't think he did. Because Dad could get Charlie to do something, but he used psychology a lot of times.
Okay. Is your dad older than Charlie?
No, Charlie was older than Dad. Now, when Charlie's divorce happened in '74, after that, Dad seemed to stick with a title. Dad didn't like to stick with a title. I don't know why, but sometimes Dad would think the circumstance might mean he should give another title. I don't know why Finley men are like that. But with Dad, he stayed with the VP title after Charlie's divorce. Also, I noticed Charlie became very needy. It's sort of like Dad took the place of Charlie's wife. In a way, Charlie just became very, very dependent on Dad, more so than before. And Dad was able to get Charlie to do more.
How did they divide the labor, so to speak?
Oh, well, first of all, I think Dad was relieved that Charlie wasn't in the office.
Right.
I'm trying to remember. I never saw Charlie come to work and sit in the office that was supposed to be his office. That would have been the conference room. I never saw that except during the World Series. He was there, and celebrities would come in there and sit and wait till the game started, and Charlie would be in there with them. But I never saw Charlie go to work at that office. I remember him being in Kansas City much more, but not Oakland.
Okay. Talk about celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
In Game 6 of the 1973 World Series, the only game I have ever attended that was a World Series game in my life, and I grew up in New York. So imagine how happy I was to be there as a Met fan.
You were in New York then?
Well, I was in California.
Oh.
And I still a Met fan at that time and today as well. And I went to a game where Jack Benny
Yeah.
throughout and you were nice enough to send me that picture
Yes.
of Charlie, Bowie Kuhn, and Jack Benny, and
Yeah.
I treasure that. That's terrific, Nancy. I'll always remember that. Um,
I still have the chair he sat in. I
oh,
still have the black leather chair that the celebrities sat in the conference room while they waited.
oh, wow. You got to keep that chair.
Well, that went to Dad. First, it went to the office after we closed the lease at 1200 Lakeshore, and then Dad had it, and now I have it. That's the only piece of furniture that I never got rid of.
Yeah. You know, I want to know so much about your dad, but I really, based on what you told me before, and that's shocking. What was your mom like beyond her problems?
Well, I hear that she was very smart, good sense of humor. Uh, well, she liked to tease about things a lot of people didn't understand. So she was very well read, and she did very well in World War II with the doctors and the nurses. I mean, she was a nurse, but she also had a degree in education, so she could teach if she wanted to. She preferred nursing.
Huh.
And I know there were problems with her talking to the other women in baseball because she could talk about events that they may not be aware of.
Yeah, more important than the double play, perhaps.
Right. I just remember her saying that when she was with a group of nurses on a break in the Philippines, they went exploring and they went into a cave, and at the end of the cave they saw skeletons in Japanese uniforms sitting up against a wall.
Wow.
And yeah, they went out screaming. Yes. So that was, things like that. I don't know.
What did she do for fun? Your mom?
She liked to play bridge, but you don't do that by yourself.
Right.
She taught me how to play a lot of card games that are for people alone. There, of course, we all know solitaire. Then there was another game called Clock. She taught me these games to keep me busy, and she liked to do crossword puzzles. She liked to read books on ancient Egypt and Rome.
Oh, she had to be very intelligent, a nurse, all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember those were the books we had when I was little.
Okay. What music did you guys listen to when you were a kid?
I really don't remember. I remember Sinatra type of music, Bobby Darin.
Okay.
But I don't remember what would have been considered current music.
Well, no. By at
60s.
that time,
yeah,
there were different current.
Well, I mean 60s. I don't remember hearing 60s music. Now, when
in other words, not a lot of doo-wop and stuff.
Right. Right.
It was more of the classic, the standards.
Right. And then I remember when I moved to Oakland, I liked music like the Fifth Dimension, or later it was Queen. And Dad would let me put that music on in the car. He may not have understood it, but he would let me.
Well, that's good, because my parents would never let me do it. My dad would always put on country. My mom would do it, but my dad always put on country, and I'd be like, Dad, don't drive us to the store. Don't drive us to the park. Let Mom do it. Mom's cooler. Mom listened to the pop stuff. I'd listen to, like you said, the stuff of the 70s. I was a product of the 60s, child of the 70s. And so
okay, yeah, Morgan likes Sinatra and stuff like that. I mean, that's okay, but I like the 70s. But see, my mom wouldn't let me listen to music when I was with her as she got into religion. That was sinful.
What type of religion did she get into, just out of curiosity?
They call it a holy roller religion, where they speak in tongues.
Yeah, that's.
I was old enough to know that that was just something she was in, and it wasn't for me. And I knew it was just temporary until I could get out.
Nancy, did you have siblings growing up?
No.
So you were an only child.
Yes, that's why my cousins were so special, and they were in Kansas City a lot, and then we went to stay with them at their LaPorte place. And Mom and Aunt Shirley got along well. I remember they talked a lot. They sat next to each other. Another friend Mom has was George Toma's wife.
Oh, the groundskeeper.
Yes, Mom said that his wife, Mrs. Toma, kept her up to date on all the gossip.
Well, he was one of the most famous groundkeepers in all of baseball history.
Oh, he's still going. His birthday is February 2nd.
Wow.
Yeah, and we exchange cards. Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Nice.
He's still all muscle.
I noticed we steamrolled over something when we came to music. We just kind of seemed to glaze right over it.
What was that?
You're a little bit of a Beatles fan, aren't you?
You know, I'm not, but I like some of the music. Now, before the Beatles visited in Kansas City, Charlie had Mom put on a 45 constantly. He did that to try to get everyone in the mood. And it was, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And it was over and over again.
So if every time you hear that song, you probably have some sort of transcendence back to that day.
Yes, to me, that was, I didn't really get that. I didn't care for that song much, but I was really little.
And that was one of Charlie's earliest marketing, I don't want to say schemes, because schemes sound so shady.
I know, scheme, gimmick, all that stuff.
Right, and so it was hiring the Beatles for $150,000 to perform in Kansas City.
And I read things around that sound bad, like, oh, McCartney said this or that. You know, George Toma feels bad about that stuff because he said, Nancy, that stuff probably didn't happen. He said he never heard any of it. He doesn't know why people have to say bad things around something that was considered good or fun.
We were also talking about, let's say, people that were in the limelight. Didn't you get to hang out with one of our past presidents?
Oh, Truman. He sat next to us. I would walk over to him because Mom and Aunt Shirley were talking a lot, and I would be bored if my cousins weren't there. So I would walk over and look at him, and he was always so sweet. He would put me on his lap. One time he gave my mom a huge box of lollipops, and that kept me busy. He was very sweet. I remember Mom said that Bess was there one time, and she didn't pat me on the cheek like Truman did. She thought she was a little cold, but yeah.
He had a daughter of his own that played the piano, if I remember correctly.
I heard that. Dad attended the same Masonic lodge as Truman.
Really?
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
And Truman gave Dad an signed 8x10 photo when they left. I mean, Dad had good friends back there. Charlie didn't, because Charlie didn't really live there.
Tell me something about Truman that you learned through your dad that we may not know about.
That he was a Mason.
Okay.
What else? I'm trying to remember.
He was definitely an absolute baseball fan.
Yes, he had those. Yes, those were season tickets. He was very dedicated, very polite, never never acted like he expected anything given to him.
A real person and not just a mock-up.
Yes. Well, I saw that movie Oppenheimer, and I'm thinking, Mom was over there when the bombs went off, and here's Truman. Wonder what that was like for her.
Wow.
I know.
Very surreal, and just kind of wondering, wow, just such a difference between night and day. Do you mind if I go forward a little bit? When they made the move out to Oakland, it was 68. You didn't come right out with your dad. Like you said, they were it was supposed to be turnkey. The Coliseum was supposed to be turnkey. Right. It wasn't. The front office hadn't developed. But by the time you got out there from Kansas City, you were raring to go, weren't you?
Oh, yes. In fact, I remember people waited in line to come see me. I was sitting in the back, and Dad asked people to come in and see me one at a time. That was funny. Dad was really into crowd control. I guess he thought I might get overwhelmed. And Steve Vucinich was one of those. By the way, to skip forward a little bit, have you heard of the Bohemian Club?
Yes, in San Francisco here, right?
I guess it is.
Yeah, it's a very high elite club, which all the presidents belong to.
That explains it, because our regular doctor, Dr. Hudson, who was my doctor, he used to invite Dad to that club with him. Charlie never went because he wasn't friends with the doctor. And Dad came home one time and said he saw Prince Charles there, and that Prince Charles was a lot shorter than he pictured. But see, that wasn't in the news. Usually it's in the news if a royal visit.
Ah.
Yeah, and the Bohemian Club, the reason it's kind of one of those clubs here in the city is it was the elite, but it was also a men's only club.
Ah, and it was San Francisco?
Yeah, it's in San Francisco, and it's up on the hill. It's in Nob Hill.
Oh, wow.
And so it's up the hill from us a little bit, and they were talking about when Hillary was going to get elected that they might have had to change the rules to let women in. And I thought that was going to be interesting because every president got like an honorary membership.
Oh, okay. Because I know Dad acted like he really enjoyed himself when he went to those.
Oh, yeah, I could see it. But, and how old were you or approximately in 68? Because I know that kind of thrust you into a lot of things, including your writing.
I know. I was 9. I think I was 9 or 10.
And you did your first press release at 14?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I read all of the ones we sent out. And the only thing is Dad had to remind me to put a date on it. But it was just talking about what special event was coming up. And you would just talk about what it was for, who it was honoring, and when it was going to happen. And so I would read the ones that we put out, and Dad always reviewed the releases that went out, no matter who wrote them. So it was something I wanted to try. It wasn't hard. The one I did wasn't hard.
And you guys had a lot of promotions. I mean, I'm wearing what you can't probably see. I'm wearing Stomper on my hat. We had Charlie O the Mule. I mean, I was there for the 72 season, 72, 73, 74. I was a kid in the bleachers.
Okay, see, Stomper is a person dressed up like a mascot. I used to think every team had a real animal mascot. Then I found out, no, we were the only ones with that.
All right.
Except for football, they had a pony.
Who invented Stomper? Was that Charlie's or?
No, that came from Connie Mack's elephant. Stomper's an elephant.
But that goes back to what, Kansas City or Philly?
No, that goes back to Philly, right?
Wow.
Yeah, Philadelphia. And they just do different versions of how an elephant looks. So Stomper is like a friendly elephant.
Okay.
Now let's talk about Finley Ball. I noticed that Stomper's on there, but also
Stomper's on Finley Ball?
Yeah, isn't he? Is it?
No,
looks like,
I don't think so.
Who's on top of the orange ball on Finley Ball?
Oh, that's a real elephant picture.
Oh. We would want to get in trouble with
with the elephant union.
Right. Right, that's a real kick.
They could close us down and stomp all over us.
Yeah, it's currently we're in litigation with Barnum and Bailey.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, did you hear that they're not having animals anymore? Are they still going?
Barnum and Bailey?
The virtual circus.
Yeah, I heard they were going to do away with animals, and I'm thinking, why continue that? I mean, isn't that what circus is all about? That's why I haven't heard about them when they.
Good point.
Okay.
Good point.
They're going to be reduced down to just the food that we love at ballparks, like peanuts and hot dogs, right? So.
Oh, that's too much. I'm sorry.
Hey,
No.
Nancy, I heard Morgan in the background helping us get on the air.
Yeah, he's having really bad allergies right now.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
We had a fire. The house next door to us was on fire Sunday night, and a firefighter was at our door telling us we should probably leave.
Wow.
Yeah, so they did a good job keeping it from jumping over here.
Is his allergies related to that?
No, the allergies are from cedar. I'm not allergic to cedar.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that he is. He asked if we had another state we could move to. I said no. I'm sure it will go away.
Well, you can come back to California anytime. We'd love to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm coming back June. I'll be back June.
You can come by the studio then, and we will have champagne for you.
Yeah, and you'll bring your laptop and we're going to fix it.
I will. I'm coming back for the 74 reunion.
Beautiful.
Did you hear they're going to have a Satchel Paige rocking chair bobblehead?
Really?
I saw a picture of Satchel Paige in the rocking chair with a nurse. Can you tell me about that picture?
We flew. Well, I didn't know what was happening, but a helicopter came into the center of the stadium in Kansas City. It was loud and windy. And Truman was there, and I remember it landed gently, and out comes Satchel Paige and a nurse and a rocking. No, they had the rocking chair ready for him, and I heard Satchel Paige say he would never get on another helicopter because that was too scary.
What a great pitcher he was, and what a tragedy that he had his entire career. He pitched a little at the end with Kansas City and what have you, but he was just Bob Feller-like, and because of pre-integration, he never got the chance.
I don't get that. I grew up with all colors together playing.
Yes.
I just don't get that.
It was a crazy world back then. It's a little less crazy now on that level, but crazier on other levels. So you take the good with the bad. Nancy, you and Morgan wrote the book, Finley Ball.
Yes.
How did that come about that you got together to do that? Was it initially your baby?
Yes.
And how did you work together? How did it come together?
Well, Morgan writes law books. He's always written law books, self-published. And so since he is a writer, I just wanted to make sure that what I said, grammatically, everything else was okay. And so he helped me, but then he wrote the Bowie Kuhn chapter, which there wasn't room for it in Finley Ball. So it will be in part 2.
Oh, wow.
Because it's written. What Morgan did is he just went by public record. He knows how to keep, the lawsuits away. And so he said
I'm going to hang with Morgan more often.
He said it wasn't made public enough. He said he went by public record, court hearings, and then he did take some from Jerome Holtzman's book on the commissioner. And that's the chapter. So I don't give any of my opinion, impression, or whatever. I just left that up to what Morgan found. That's already been out. It's just that a lot of people haven't seen it.
You know, Charlie called Bowie Kuhn the village idiot.
Yes, he did.
And
Yes,
he got a
did.
lot of publicity. What was
And
that
that
in
was
reference to?
What was that in reference to?
Yeah.
It just felt like Bowie Kuhn was constantly getting in his way, in his
Oh,
face.
but there was nothing specific that caused him to get that moniker.
Well, being just constant picking. Bowie Kuhn, it seemed like Bowie Kuhn was always wanting to know why Charlie was doing something and wanting a reason for it, and then he would bring up this for the good of baseball all the time. And so when, for example, when Charlie went to trade our longtime players, and they were like family, but because of free agency, Kuhn blocked it, and it was a trade. They were trades. Now Now, one thing Charlie and Dad didn't understand was why the owners didn't get together to brainstorm ways to bring free agency in. They just let it happen. And I remember.
I don't think the owners really wanted free agency.
No, they couldn't have. So Dad and Charlie kept inviting them to talk, brainstorm for ways to. It was going to happen, but why not think of ways to have it come in differently? And the owners just did not want to brainstorm. That was something that Dad and Charlie never understood. Why did they vote the way the union wanted it? Why not talk about it? Just
tell me something while we're on the subject of free agency. The catfish hunter thing, he was supposed to get a payment on an annuity that was agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
What was the circumstances behind that?
God. Dad warned Charlie about that. Charlie always paid late. Or in other words, when you have a payment due on the 1st and it says you have 2 weeks after that to pay, or you'll have to pay a late fee.
Oh, I've seen a bunch of those.
Yes, okay. Charlie always waited till that last day of the last 2 weeks. He always did that. And Dad used to tell him that was going to come back to bite him. He's going to regret that someday. Well, Catfish's agent knew that Charlie always paid that way. Always. And so he just waited for the next payment. Charlie paid that on that last day and used that loophole.
Oh.
So that's what happened. Typical insurance man,
That happens. He was. Let's not lose sight that Charlie invented disability insurance for doctors.
Yes.
And that was you don't really come up with things to renovate insurance in today's day and age or yesterday's day and age.
Right.
Tell me about how that happened, because I think he was in the hospital himself.
That's how it happened. He was thinking.
Okay.
And he just wondered what the doctors did when they were sick, or like if they couldn't work for an extended period, how did they get money? That's how he came up with it.
Okay, and all of a sudden did he amass a fortune from that, or was that slowly done?
Well, he had to find an underwriter. And Dad said that took about a year. He had to find someone to, I guess, insure the insurance company in case something happened right away. And then, of course, you have all these loopholes where there's a reason you don't have to pay right away, or you make people spend a ton of time proving what happened. And so when the premiums started coming in, that's when it built up. It started building up, because premiums come in, you don't have to pay out usually, or usually sometimes they give a year before they can make any claims. I don't know what he did then, but the premiums just came in because there's no way to get out of paying a premium. You just lose your coverage if you don't.
Was he surprised at the success he was having?
Oh yes, yes. Because look, he paid $500,000 of his own money the first year he owned a baseball team. I remember Dad saying that's crazy. He was manic about it.
Yeah. How did your dad and Charlie come by their differences in ideology?
Oh God. Well, Dad was happy to be on the side watching Charlie's success because Dad knew he could go to a game anytime. Charlie would make him feel, like he was important, and if Dad visited, it was fine. Dad never thought he would need to give his career up for that. But Charlie was just torn up at the end of the 61 season when he refused to pay Ernie Mill that money. Apparently, the team checkbook and everything else was in Mill's office. Johnson didn't run that out of Chicago. So Mill had all of that with him, and Clark Carroll had been one of his writers, and then he becomes GM. So it's being run by the Kansas City Star, and when Charlie took over and found those payments going out to Mel, and then that writer McGuff, he wasn't going to pay that, and he went to Crosby Kemper's dad, who was his banker, and asked him what to do. So Crosby remembered that. It was a heavy weight on Charlie. What do? Do you continue making payments? Or do you stop and hope no one gets angry? Well, he stopped. And around that time, Frank Lane had made a trade to the Yankees, and Charlie told him to never do that without talking to him. So Frank Lane was fired, and Frank Lane was a friend of Mel's. That's how Charlie hired Lane. And Mel offered to shake Charlie's hand when Charlie won the auction. But when Charlie fired Lane, and then the payment didn't come through the same month, everything hit the fan. That's when Lane said he knew Finley was thinking of moving. So that started, Mel started using that.
Yeah.
And it was bad. It was bad. Charlie went to meet with Dad in Dallas at the end of 61.
Okay.
And I remember Dad saying he was just beside himself, teary-eyed. He'd been talking to my granddad, who he talked to all the time, and Granddad said, "You need Carl," because Dad could read the fine print and let you know. That's why Dad ended up with all this stuff, like the depositions. Charlie never wanted to read those.
Right. Charlie had baseball acumen, or whatever the word is. How did that come? Where was
Except in small print. It was more people. It was more with people. And then, yes, knowing who would be better at that time to play certain roles on the field. He could see who should be there, who shouldn't be there. I have to tell you, I mentioned synesthesia in the book, and I visited another Finley family member, a cousin who's a man, and he told me that the way he found out he needed eyeglasses was in high school. He would play baseball, and he was in the outfield, and he couldn't see the ball coming very easily. But at that time, he didn't really realize he needed glasses. He said he always caught the ball just on the edge of his glove. And the way he did is he said he heard the ball coming. He said, Nancy, if you ask any player, he'll tell you they can hear the ball. I'd never heard that before. So he said as soon as he got the glasses, he started catching it right in the middle of his glove. But I thought, I just heard about this a month ago. And I'm thinking that is another form of synesthesia, unless he's right unless other players hear the ball coming.
That's that orange ball that's sitting there on Finley ball.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes sense, right? Because how many times have, even as a child, you're trying to catch the ball and it gets lost in the sun?
But do players hear it coming? That's how he was able to catch it.
Wow.
I mean, is that? I see. I don't know how to ask a player. Do you hear the ball or did you? Maybe in June, when I sit next to one, I can. But Tommy made it sound like he thought all players could hear the ball coming. I don't think so.
You can hear the ball coming when you're standing on the plate.
Yeah.
But by the time you hear it, it's too late. Hey, that was kind of a
right.
Yeah, he was in the outfield. So I mean, that sounds to me like and he's a Finley. So you learn about synesthesia in the family this way, by hearing these things that throw you off.
Well, and it brings me back to like a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he hits the ball and the ball goes screaming out to the center field. And so I guess, again, being that product of the 60s, child of the 70s.
I know.
And so, again, I want to talk about your book, Finley Ball, How Two Baseball Outsiders Turned the Oakland A's into a Dynasty and Changed the Game Forever.
Yes, in my next book, I'm changing the name slightly to Straight A's.
Okay.
And I'll have Finley Ball in parentheses.
Is Morgan working with you on that as well?
Well, he has. In fact, the book's done. It just needs to be polished. So, he's done pretty much all he needs, because I needed, for this part, I needed him to make sure Coon was okay. Everything's fine with that, because I go into Coon's post-baseball career too, because but Morgan shows actually that Coon's personality is what it is. It really doesn't change. And it shows that some of the things he did when he was commissioner were unfair.
Yeah.
Because it's very self-serving, abuse of power. Now, Jerome Holtzman, we used his quote. He thought that Coon was obsessed with Charlie.
Oh, really?
Yes, he writes about Coon talking about Charlie's eyes being dark, and I mean, Coon just really pays too much attention to Charlie as far as Holtzman's concerned.
Jerome Holtzman was a terrific writer. I lived in Sacramento when he did, and got to know him a little bit back in the 60s. And I don't remember how he passed away. He died very young. Am I correct?
Well, really, because his book on the commissioners, I think that was written in the late 80s. But he was a writer for the Chicago Sun. Are we thinking of the same one?
We are, and I think he was syndicated in the Sacramento Bee. I think.
Okay. Now he also comes out and says that
I know Barry Bloom, who has become my terrific Facebook friend, was syndicated in the Sacramento, another paper in Sacramento. And when I first moved to Sacramento, I thought that a lot of these writers were local, and they were. Turns out I was learning about syndication, and
that's good money.
Yeah, no question about it. No.
Well, Holtzman says that he knows for a fact that some of Coon's witnesses lied on the stand during that trial, Finley versus Coon.
Oh, really?
Yes, I quote that. He said that he had the inside scoop, I guess, and he knew some of them were lying. And when he saw them at spring training in '77, he asked them about it. And he just said that their explanation was, well, we were there for the commissioner. What are we going to do?
Wow.
Yeah. So,
it's incredible. Let me ask you this, Nancy. is there anything in the book, Finley Ball, that you were sorry you put in? And conversely, is there anything that you were glad you put in?
Well, I'm not sorry I put anything in.
Oh,
I
okay.
worked so hard. That was like,
no regrets. Am I correct?
No. I worked hard. I spent a lot of time on getting my sources together. I don't say anything unless I have proof.
Well, I've talked to a lot of authors, and there are only two, you included. Peter Golenbach responds in the same way. When I ask him, is there anything that you would have put in, you're sorry you didn't put in? No. He's adamant about completing the work that he did, and you live with it. You take your shot, and you live with it.
Well, I wish more people would come forward to debate me if they don't agree with what I say, but no one does. I think maybe, you know, if I said something about a friend or whatever, I might feel that way. But I wrote what I knew, and I wrote it as more up to be close to Dad.
Okay.
And to make sure that people know who Dad is, and he's not Charlie. He's a different person.
Right.
And he ran that team. The second book is about how we were doing well in the late 70s, not like all the other books talk about, because we were keeping it quiet. Kuhn would have given us a lot of trouble if he knew we were rebuilding the way we were.
Yeah. Seemed like your dad was the logical one that kept the glue of the team together and the franchise together. And do you think a lot of that came from his, because he was an educator early on?
Yes, very loyal educator. He wanted to actually work in Texas education law. Dad always knew the answers in school if something wasn't going right. He always knew what to tell me to do. And he taught business law, but Dad was always the person who could talk to people without screaming or sounding defensive, and he would get things done. But he also could have left any time in the late 70s. Dad could have walked out and taken us back to Texas or wherever, and Charlie couldn't have done anything about it except go in there and take over. He would not have done that. And my cousins weren't allowed to come in and work in the front office. We could have used the help, but Charlie wasn't speaking to them.
These were his kids, am I correct?
Yes. They were estranged after 75.
Oh, wow.
And
when that must have been as a result of him being estranged from his wife.
Yes, it was. Dad said Charlie wanted Dad to go to his cousin Paul's engagement party in LA, and Dad said when they walked in, you could tell there were people on one side and then them on the other side. It was very uncomfortable. But,
that's how families get sometimes. And,
well, Paul would call Dad if he wanted to know anything going on. But Charlie could never tell Dad who to talk to. Yeah. But they were estranged, and that made it difficult because Dad would put someone's name in the yearbook to make it look bigger.
Oh, wow.
But it's funny. People will say, oh, yeah, we contacted Charlie Jr. because his name's in the yearbook. That didn't do any good.
Do you mind if I roll through a couple names before we let you go? Because we're wrapping it up. I wanted to get your impression, at least a couple words on each one of these players from the past, from the Swinging A's. Vida Blue.
Oh, I love Vida.
Oh, me too. Great guy.
Yeah, good friend.
There you go. Let's say Raleigh Fingers.
Raleigh's good. Raleigh was the only one who could really grow a mustache like that. Those are hard.
Right. Was it Charlie, or was it was Charlie that was trying to give people a bonus, like a $300 bonus if they could get it going?
if they could grow one.
Right.
No one knew how hard those were.
Okay.
I still can't grow it, and I'm in my 50s, approaching 60, so I get it. So Catfish Hunter.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, and then Reggie Jackson.
I like him. Reggie has a good business head. I think he ended up a lot like Charlie.
And then, what was your favorite player of all times?
I would have to say Campy.
Mine too.
There you go.
I got to meet Campy through, I don't know if you know him, Dr. Pearson was the A's spring training doctor in Mesa.
That's where I've heard that name. Okay, I've heard his name.
He was my camp buddy.
Oh.
And I was doing tops, and he was doing his doctoring, and we both knew a lot of people, same people in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to put out on the air how much I miss him. And rest in peace, Dr. P.
Oh, gosh, I know. I just feel like calling some players and just to find out if they're still with us. It's just like I get sort of paranoid about this.
Yeah.
I don't want people to leave.
Hey, did you know Mitchell Page at all?
I knew him enough where if we saw each other, we'd say hi from social events from the late
another good guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I like, and then Odom, Johnny Odom.
Oh yeah, John Blue Moon Odom.
Forget him. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I look forward to seeing these guys again.
Nancy, thank you for joining us. Can we get you back again? You're such a
Of
joy
course,
to talk
thank
to.
you for helping me. Thank you for rescuing me.
What? Rescuing? You
No,
rescued us again.
My messenger was
Again, guys, Nancy Finley, Finley Ball, how two baseball outsiders turned the Oakland A's into a dynasty and changed the game forever. And then your new book. Do you have that title that's
Yes.
coming?
Straight A's, the story of the Finley dynasty.
And when can we see that out?
Oh, I hope by the fall championship time.
And then how do we keep up with everything Nancy Finley?
I'll send it. I'll send it on Facebook or directly to Ralph. And
Beautiful.
Ralph can share.
Awesome.
Yes.
So thank you for hanging out with us.
Thank you,
Oh,
Nancy.
yeah.
Say hi to Morgan.
I will. I'm gonna go get him
Tell him I
medicine.
hope his allergies are.
He wants brandy. He wants brandy for his allergies.
Oh,
Thank you, guys.
Randy. I didn't think people in Texas drank brandy.
Oh my gosh, you should see all the commercials for alcohol they have here.
Oh, well, that makes me feel good.
Oh
You-
yeah.
As always, guys, when we have these great conversations, we went into extra innings, but thank you again.
Oh yes, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Nancy. Come back, please.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Best to Morgan and be well.
Okay, you too.
All right. We're going to close it out. And, Pauly, I just want to thank you. You are terrific, as usual.
Thank you, bud.
And your A's knowledge was fantastic.
Up to par, kind of.
Par excellence.
Par excellence.
Excellence.
All right. For myself, the Zig Man, we out.
We out. Thank you, everybody.
And next week, 11 to 1 PST. Don't miss it. It's Zig in the Zone, guys.